Hey everybody, Sean McInnes here. I am currently joined by Dan Hay from Day One Studios, who's here to tell us a little bit about Fear 3. Dan, how are you doing this morning?
Good, how you doing?
I'm doing quite well. So Dan, you just treated me to a demo of Fear 3, and one of the questions that you sort of you asked during there that really stuck out in my mind is, how do you make a co-op game scary? And that's sort of the thing that I've been churning over ever since then. So Fear 3, it's a co-op first-person shooter that's also a very intensive horror first-person shooter. Why have you chosen to go co-op this time around?
Well, we wanted to make sure that we took sort of the hallmarks of the franchise, right? Great storytelling, horror, and frenetic combat, and we did something new with it, so we put in co-op. But, the first thing that happens when you put co-op into a horror game is, what you're used to doing when you're in a horror game is being alone in the dark. You put co-op, you're not alone anymore, so there's some real challenges there. But for us, we solve that very specific challenge with the fact that you're in the dark with a psychopath. It's a simple theme in this game. This is your brother. You've killed him. He's a psychopath, and you're trapped sort of in this game with him, and you guys don't trust each other at all.
While we're on the subject of those brothers, can you describe who they are for us and why there's sort of that tension there that you were describing?
It's a really interesting family dynamic. It's very dysfunctional. These guys don't trust each other. You have one brother who's effectively mute, and he's a super soldier and dangerous and brooding, and you have the other brother who is a psychopath, and one killed the other. So you put those together and you get a pretty good story.
Yeah, that does seem like a very interesting way to deal with the fact that most co-op first-person shooters are all about smiles and trust exercises. In this one, you don't really trust each other,
No, not at all. I mean, you see when you're playing through the game, you get this sense of Fettel's there, he's in your ear, he's nagging at you. And do you trust him? Can you trust him? He's making decisions that he's not telling you about, or if you're playing with your buddy and you are working together, you're going to be rewarded for the decisions you make together.
Now, it's not just the fact that these guys don't really trust each other or there's some tension going on there, but also the fact that they play quite differently. What you see on one screen is very different from what you see on the other. Can you describe how these two different characters play and how they interact with each other?
Sure. I mean, if you like playing shooters and you're a classic shooter, run-and-gun type person, you like cover, the point man side of the game is good for you. But if you want to be a little bit more contemplative, you want to get in there and you want to be able to possess and hold on to the AI and basically use their powers against each other, you're going to play Fettel. And one is sort of run and gun, and the other is just completely getting into the space and creating absolute havoc.
Now, as far as the character who's playing Point Man, is that going to feel a lot like those previous Fear games, or have you guys gone in and really, messed with that whole formula?
We want to make sure that if you played the previous games and you pick up the controller, you're going to be successful. And we've seen that. We've gotten good feedback about that. But the key thing for us was when you play together that you're rewarded for it. So, if you've got a mechanic like slow-mo, and in slow-mo you're playing with your brother, maybe a tie-in to some of the powers and how they work in conjunction with one another. Can't tell you too much about it, though.
And how about the types of enemies that you encounter? Are they going to be a lot more terrifying than in previous games? Have you really gone over the top here?
I think when you look at the enemies that are in this game, we wanted to make sure that we went down two veins. You have the paranormals, which, as Alma is having these rift events being caused by her contractions, they're sort of tearing into our world and attacking our space. But then you also see the 2.0 version of Armacam, and they've leveraged some of that technology, and they've leveraged some of Alma's natural gifts. And so now you've got enemies that can basically phase into your world and attack you from multiple directions, and it's scary as hell.
Now, it looks like you guys also have those mech suits in this game as well. What's going on there? What's different about those things when you can have two players riding in them, one next to the other?
You can blow up a lot more stuff. What's really cool about it is that we wanted to make sure that there was risk and reward. You're in the mechs, and it's not just a palate cleanse. You get in there, and there's a ton of stuff going on. Fettel doesn't have to play in the mech. He can get out, he can possess guys, he can play the map a different way, or you can have two mechs side by side. It's really play as you want to play, and it's pretty loud.
Now, I know the demo that you showed me here was from, a little later in the game, and it looks like there's a lot going on there, lots of different types of enemies, lots of different options that you can take. Does the game change much from the very beginning to the very end in terms of how it plays and the types of options that players have?
Yeah, I think it does, and I think that's because of the story. When you start off the game, you're understanding that something's going on, but you're not sure how you're a bigger picture of this stuff. And you have the relationship of the brothers, and maybe Fettel's, he has his own sort of objective through the game. As you get closer to the end of the game and you start moving towards that key moment where whatever it is that Alma is going to give birth to is going to enter into our world. I think what's interesting is that it doesn't just evolve in one way. The scoring system allows you to play the game in different ways. So you play and you have one experience, especially if you're playing, said you're going to play single player. You're going to play as point man, work your way through the space, and you think you know the game. And then your buddy comes over and you want to play, and he joins as Fettel. And you sit down and realize that parts of the game that you were sure you knew, AI would spawn here or I would go in this particular way, are not the same. And so new parts of the game open up. And it really depends on the type of person that you're playing with. So the more you play, the more it's different.
All right. Well, it is a horror game, so I don't want you to give away all the secrets that are going to frighten players. So one last question I've got for you is, when is Fear 3 going to be out in stores, and which platforms will it be out on?
It's going to be out this fall, and it's on PC, 360, and PS3.
Thank you very much for your time. There you guys have it. Fear 3. Stay tuned for more coverage over these next few months.